hours after a loss to the Nuggets. The NBA suspended him then for 8 games, and Morant went to a counseling program. The team is now suspending him from all team activities pending league review.
I think the league office is going to be far more punitive in how it approaches how long and what this is going to cost Ja Morant away from the Grizzlies and away from the NBA.
I've got people in the league texting me saying Ja Morant should be suspended for the year. I think it's going to be about 25 games. Jalen Rose thinks it's going to be half the season. I don't know, but I do know this. A suspension is coming, and it's going to be from the league, and it needs to be from the league because you can't trust the organization to handle it on their own. Evidently, that's not good enough because Ja Morant ain't listening.
Morant is alleged to have been involved in several troubling off-court incidents over the last year, including threatening the head of security at a Memphis mall, punching a 17-year-old and flashing a gun last summer, riding in an SUV that pointed a laser at the Pacers team bus, with one Indiana staffer believing the laser was attached to a gun. He addressed his conduct when he returned to practice following his suspension on March 21st.
Obviously, I made mistakes in the past that, caused a lot of, negative attention, not only to me, but, my family as well, my team, the organization. And, I'm completely sorry for that. So, my job now is, like I said, to, be, more responsible, more smarter, and, don't cause any of that no more.
A lengthy suspension could prove costly for Morant. His 5-year, $194 million max contract is set to kick in this coming season, not to mention his endorsement deals with Nike and Powerade, the beverage brand telling me today they did not have any Ja-related content running at this time. As for Nike, the company had said in March they were standing by Morant and released his signature shoe just last month. I'm Michelle Steele, ESPN.
As we bring Richard Jefferson and Jalen Rose into this conversation. Richard, I want to start with you here. Your reaction when you saw this yet again?
My reaction? I won't tell you my reaction. Guns are a sensitive subject in my house for some prior things. And so I was very quick. I was about to turn off the channel because I was watching the pregame and I knew about the news. And I was going to turn it off really quickly. But then I was like, I'll let it play because I didn't want my kids to hear that a guy that they know was playing with guns. And so I was like, let me leave it on. So then all of a sudden, my 6-year-old is like, Dad, that Ja Morant, the one with the brace. I'm like, yeah. She's like, he's really good, isn't he? And I was like, yeah, he's in trouble because he was playing with the gun. And they were like, well, why would he do that? And I was like, son, I don't know. I'm like, would you guys like to see the video? So they run over. I show them the video. They're like, Daddy, why was he doing that? Son, I don't know. I can't answer. I was like, is that a good decision or a bad decision? My son was like, oh, that's a bad decision. I almost laughed because I saw his reaction immediately. And I was like, and buddy, this is the second time that he did it. They're like, he did it before. And I'm like, yeah. I didn't want to show him the video. I was like, hey, do you guys want to see the picture? So I showed them the picture and they're like, Daddy, why would he do this? And I'm sitting here like, son, you are 6, you are 8, and you can recognize that this is a terrible decision. So I don't know. I sit up here with my experience as a 43-year-old man. Jalen Rose is going to sit up here, and a damn 6- and 8-year-old can look at what they were watching on television, see it on social media, and I wanted to show it to them because we have a very no guns, we don't play that in our house. I don't let my kids play with any type of gun. We know those rules in black households. We don't play with any type of guns. And so for my 6- and 8-year-old kid to recognize and look at me with utter confusion. And they were just like, Daddy, why would I don't know. So I'm not going to sit down here and break down and say he needs to get that. All I know is that if my little kids can see that that was a terrible, terrible decision, I don't know. There's no analysis for me to break down. It is it's beyond any sort of analysis.
That's very well said. And everybody knows I got a chance to sit down with him after the first situation.
Yeah.
And what I gather is sometimes it takes young people longer to actually get the message, and usually that message comes into a stiff punishment. And what's going to now happen is it not only affects you clearly as an individual, but this is going to affect their entire offseason, affect their draft, affect their preseason, and affect the start of next season. So that long runway, Malika, is then going to be a revelation, hopefully, in his life to where his decision-making has got to change. And Richard, you're exactly right. The key thing is not only having the gun, because depending on where you live, laws dictate whether you're able to have a gun. It's brandishing it and playing with it. That's where it definitely goes too far. And lastly, there are going to be a lot of people that blame the people around you Once you get drafted, you're the CEO. They're your friends, your families, in a lot of cases, your employees. So you're responsible for your behavior. And as a professional athlete, we all know we're required to be role models, whether we accept that or not. If he was in a different profession, maybe an artist or an entertainer, people would look at the video different and maybe even cheerlead it. But because he works in the NBA and has a corporate job, that's just behavior that you can't have.
I think back to the interview that you did with Ja Morant, Jalen, where he said that that's not me. The person you saw in that video is not me.
Yeah.
Now that this has happened again, as we heard from our senior insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, the league is going to have to look at this through a different lens and potentially with more severity now that this is a reoccurring behavior. Shifting to some news from over the weekend now in the coaching world. In the aftermath of the blowout elimination loss in the Western Conference semifinals, the Phoenix Suns, they fired coach Monty Williams on Saturday night. Last season's coach of the year had 3 years, $20 million plus left on his contract. Now Phoenix will be looking for a new coach again. So I want to bring Woj back into this conversation. Woj, how did the Suns land on the decision to fire Monty Williams?
Matt Ishbia, the Suns' new owner, who he engineered the Kevin Durant trade. He was the one who essentially negotiated it, signed off on it, signed off hours before the trade deadline. That was his trade, and this is largely his decision to fire Monty Williams. I'm told that he never really warmed to Monty Williams in their relatively brief time together in Phoenix, despite the fact that Monty Williams is responsible from taking this Suns franchise from really a laughingstock in the NBA, a 19-win team to the NBA Finals, was Coach of the Year with both the Coaches Association and the media vote. But Matt Ishbia is running basketball operations in Phoenix, and he wanted to hire his own coach, and so now he'll get the opportunity to do that. And certainly at a time with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, certainly with a team built around them and some very limited ability to make dramatic change, I think dramatic positive change to this roster because of the payroll and the fact that they've traded away 4 first-round picks for Durant. They gave up a pick swap in that deal. They're limited in how they can back up the depth around those two players, and now they're going to start over with a new coach. And in this league, and Richard, Jalen, Malika, you are always on the clock with superstar players. It doesn't matter how many years left they have on their deals. And so you go on the clock now with a new hire, with a new head coach. And certainly it's a competitive marketplace out there. Toronto has got an opening. Milwaukee, who can offer the chance to coach Giannis Antetokounmpo. Detroit's position has not been filled yet. So Phoenix is not the only team in the marketplace. And now, of course, Monty Williams is out. Again, 3 years, over $20 million left on his contract when Phoenix, Matt Ishbia, fired him late on Saturday night.
Under Monty Williams, the Suns, they made the playoffs in 3 of the 4 seasons. You have to imagine that all those coaching vacancies that were popping up around the league, that Monty Williams is going to be considered as those searches continue as well. Woj, thank you so much for spending some time here with us on NBA Today. So the Phoenix Suns, they have been eliminated from this postseason, but a couple of teams that have not. We want to know who you think is going to be the last team standing. Look at that trophy, Richard.